There are several people I want to personally thank for making the results in the Virginia election possible. First, Joe Biden. Second, Kamala Harris. Third, Merrick Garland. Fourth, Alex Mayorkas. Guys, this would not have been possible without you. I think what happened is that you guys went berserk. You decided, hey, it's going to be kind of fun to torment our political opponents. Hey, why not leave the border open? Let's just sort of thumb our nose at the American citizens. Let's have COVID tests for American citizens, but not for illegals. In fact, why don't we start giving the illegals some money? Does $450,000 sound like a good number? And then, you know what? We got these Americans and Afghan allies hanging out of planes, falling out of planes, Saigon style, with a botched evacuation. Oh, Americans aren't going to care about that. So what's great is that you guys have acted in a manner that has caused the American people to just be disgusted, to hate you. And what's wonderful is elections are a time to express those feelings. Now, the Democrats from the beginning were really aware of the significance of this Virginia gubernatorial election. They knew it was not just about Virginia. Here's Kamala Harris, by the way, admitting that very explicitly right before the election itself. Listen.
Because you see, what happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on.
And for once, I agree with Kamala Harris. Now, the Debbie and Daniel, you're chuckling in the background. Now, look, this is as devastating a loss for the Democrats as the Georgia election loss was for us. I'm talking now about the 2 Georgia Senate seats that we lost in early 2021. And while it's tempting to compare the two and go, well, you know, we lost 2, they lost 1. By the way, they didn't just lose 1. They lost the Virginia House of Delegates. So they've lost all the way down the ticket. They lost the lieutenant governorship. So this is a sweep across Virginia for the Republicans. Great stuff. But even the Georgia analogy, although tempting at first glance, is flawed. And it's flawed because in Georgia, that was a kind of anomalous circumstance. It was a circumstance in which the Trumpsters, the MAGA types, the people who thought that the 2020 election had somehow gone wrong, these are the people who were turned against the Georgia Republican establishment. So there was an internecine battle within the GOP in Georgia. And it's quite possible, in fact, I think likely, that some Georgians were like, well, you know, I'm so angry about this, I'm just not going to vote, I'm going to stay home. And so the Georgia outcome could be explained by this bizarre situation, but not here. As I mentioned, in Virginia, the Democrats were united. They went all in, all of them, the progressive left, the moderate, everyone was kind of pushing for McAuliffe, and it still didn't work. Now, let me turn for a moment to Youngkin, because there's sort of a debate about how Youngkin did it. One message, of course, is that Youngkin did it by embracing Trump. Youngkin, and it's true, never repudiated Trump, never repudiated the Trump agenda or Trumpism. And when people kept saying, as they did again and again, that, you know, this guy's a clone of Trump, this is a referendum on Trump, basically Youngkin would just smile and move on. On the other side, and this is also worth noting, Youngkin did not full-throatedly embrace Trump. Trump didn't, in fact, show up in Virginia. I think that actually showed some wise restraint on Trump's part. And why? Because on the one hand, we need Trump to activate the MAGA base, to get the Virginia hardcore conservatives to come out in big numbers, to be excited about this guy Youngkin, and they were. So Trump deserves a lot of credit for that. At the same time, Youngkin was going after suburban voters and Biden voters who were not particularly excited about Trump, but who liked the idea of Youngkin, basically a conservative guy, a nice guy, a guy with a sweater, a guy with a smile, a guy who basically said, look, I will try to bring Virginia together. I will try to bring parental involvement in education. So Youngkin basically pulled this off. You could call it Trump plus. He pulled it off Trump plus. And that's a lesson for us going forward. It shows us that we can win on the Trump platform, on the Trump agenda, but style matters as well. I think in the end, the reason we won in Virginia is because the American people essentially had enough. This was a sort of let's stop the insanity election. America is almost unrecognizable from what it was just a year ago. I mentioned Afghanistan, I mentioned the border, CRT, I mean, racial indoctrination, transgender bathrooms, biological boys running in girls' races, across the board censorship. I mean, I think the American people were basically saying enough is enough. Parents in Virginia were disgusted. I mean, and McAuliffe played into this. He's basically like, you know what? Parents really don't belong. They don't have a voice in education. That's up to the teachers. Basically, in public schools, you turn your kids over to the state. And then this idiot, right before the election, the last day, he comes out and goes, well, I think we need to reduce the number of white teachers. He thought this was really a brilliant thing to say on the eve of the election. We need to reduce the number of white teachers because, after all, if you're a black or brown kid in the classroom, you don't really want to see a white teacher teaching you math or teaching you history. So look, basically, parents decided, look, I don't want my kid to be poisoned with this stuff. White kids, well, I don't want my kid feeling bad about themselves. Brown parents were thinking, listen, I want my kids to be happy and assimilate and become successful in America. They're not going to benefit from this racial indoctrination. And even black parents were like, what's this all about? What are we getting out of this? I mean, what is the message of CRT? Kiss every black behind in sight? Is that really our agenda? And the underlying implication is that black kids are inferior. Black kids can't do it. Black kids need to be treated with kid gloves. Black kids basically need to be sort of put on a pedestal, almost a kind of Special Olympics, because they can't compete with other students. So this is the poison that the left is pushing everywhere. It's delightful to see that the American people, the people of Virginia, the people in a moderate state, basically decided, you know what? We need to send these people a message. We need to teach them a lesson.